Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, November 17th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Obey or pay? That is what county officials are saying to dozens of businesses denying new COVID restrictions. The stern warnings come as COVID cases skyrocket. The latest numbers in a moment. But first, KPBS reporter John Carroll on the get on board or else approach. We apologize for those technical difficulties we seem to be experiencing. In other news, we're waiting on updated numbers from county health officials right now. Monday's update included more than 800 new cases, and overall the county has seen more than 65,000 cases with 926 deaths. And today, county supervisors approved an extra $2 million for an income replacement fund. And late this afternoon, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, a high-ranking Republican, announced he tested positive for COVID-19. A local private school had a rule requiring teachers to work in person even if they have family members who are especially vulnerable to COVID-19. Now the school has changed course. KPBS education reporter Joe Hung explains why the rule was allowed in the first place and whether public schools will do the same.
After a week of outrage from students, parents, and alumni, the Francis Parker School in the Linda Vista neighborhood announced teachers would be allowed to work remotely through March. At first, the school said only teachers with personal medical exemptions could work remotely. 2 teachers with high-risk family members announced they would resign.
Well, obviously, it felt really wrong from the beginning to everyone.
Amitha Devanaboina is a junior at Francis Parker.
I think after they realized the students weren't going to stop because it kept going even after the weekend had passed, and because they feared a boycott, I think they finally realized maybe we should just extend this exemption for the next trimester.
Head of school Kevin Yaley made the announcement about the reversal in an email to students and parents. Yaley did not respond to multiple requests for comment. But what does the change in course mean for other teachers across the region?
In general, our protective laws that have to do with disability and safety and health focus for the most part on the individual herself and not on family members.
Orly Lobel is a law professor at the University of San Diego.
In general, these schools can decide that they're only going to allow exemptions from in-person learning or teaching to people who themselves have a health condition, and not to those who report that they have family members.
Other local private schools have so far adopted similar policies, requiring teachers to work in person even if they have immunocompromised family. But at San Diego Unified, the county's largest public school district, officials say teachers with at-risk family members will receive accommodations. Richard Brer is the vice president of the school board at San Diego Unified.
If somebody's living with somebody who's immunocompromised or has underlying health conditions, we'll certainly, take that into account in the ADA accommodation process.
That could mean a lot of teachers ask to work remotely or be reassigned to other positions. But Barrera says they'll work it out whenever they return to in-person learning. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Coming up, being a student athlete has changed drastically during the pandemic, and those seeking a scholarship have few chances to play in front of coaches and recruiters. Later, we'll take you to North County, where some kids are going to great lengths to chase their dreams. At the national level, we're now 2 weeks straight with COVID-19 case numbers topping 100,000 per day. Around 10% of all tests are coming back positive. Mary Maloney tells us how the pandemic will overshadow this year's Thanksgiving.
The COVID-19 crisis is consuming the country.
We are back in crisis mode. We never left crisis mode.
Cases rising and many hospitals overwhelmed. More people are hospitalized in the United States for COVID-19 now than at any point during the pandemic.
We are in a critical portion of the pandemic where hospitalizations are beginning to skyrocket again. There are twice as many people in the hospital now as there were in September. We're afraid more deaths will follow.
Deaths like John Bjorkman. Just 3 months after he and his wife Chris celebrated their 39th wedding anniversary, COVID claimed John's life.
I wanted him to come home. I always thought he would come home.
Their story similar to so many others coping with the crisis. But hope is on the horizon. Scientific trials show 2 vaccines may be effective in combating coronavirus.
The fact that we have a vaccine coming means we should double down and hang in there because help is on the way.
As the world waits for vaccine approval, doctors warn to not be complacent and continue to wear masks, wash your hands, and socially distance, especially as Thanksgiving nears.
I'm just terrified about what's going to happen with Thanksgiving and the holidays like Christmas and Hanukkah. People are going to travel. People that would normally travel because they don't believe in the science, and then those that are just fatigued who are willing to take some chances.
Mary Maloney, KPBS News.
The Trump administration is giving new details on its plan to reduce troop levels in Iraq and Afghanistan.
If the forces of terror, instability, division, and hate begin a deliberate campaign to disrupt our efforts, we stand ready to apply the capabilities required to thwart them.
That's Christopher Miller in his first public comments as acting defense secretary. He did not take questions. Miller replaced Mark Esper, who was fired by President Trump after the election. The Pentagon is essentially confirming news that broke Monday that the administration will reduce troop levels in Iraq and Afghanistan to 2,500 in each country. The move will be done by January 15th, just days before President Trump leaves office. San Diego's could be the first VA facility to be named after a woman. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says this comes at a time when the VA is trying to welcome female vets.
A National VA Advisory Committee on Women recently recommended renaming at least one VA hospital after a woman, part of a series of recommendations to make the growing number of female veterans feel more comfortable using VA facilities. Congressman Mike Levin wants that facility to be in San Diego.
I think there are so many overwhelmingly qualified women veterans that we could select from, and I look forward to getting the recommendations from our group that is convening to do this. I'd like to think this is the sort of thing that we can get a great deal of consensus around.
Karen Brennan was an Army intelligence officer during the Cold War. She chairs the new group created by Levin to recommend the name. Brennan says it's more than symbolism for women vets or even young women who will see that sign.
It gives them inspiration maybe to understand that, honor and service to one's country isn't defined by gender as much as it is by personal character.
The 11-member group of 6 women and 5 men will comb through San Diego history. The namesake veteran must be deceased.
And then the rest of it is up to the, how compelling of a history does this person have? Were they a game changer? Did they serve with distinction in a way that, put them above other people?
It could be anyone from 25-year-old First Lieutenant Jennifer Moreno, who was killed by a roadside bomb in Afghanistan in 2013, to the first female Marine to arrive at Camp Pendleton.
It's like every veteran has a story. Women veterans and men are no different in that respect. The only difference really is that our stories are not told as often.
The group is supposed to give the congressman a list of 3 recommendations by Memorial Day. The VA hospital at La Jolla and the clinic in Oceanside are 2 candidates. Neither are named for a person right now. It would still take an act of Congress. San Diego is in a foot race to be the first, with a group attempting to rename the Manhattan VA after a woman. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
A recent California law says local law enforcement must give annual updates to the public on their interactions with federal immigration authorities. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department is giving its update tonight. Before the forum, immigrant advocates held a car caravan in front of the county administration building demanding that Sheriff Bill Gore stop transferring detainees from San Diego jails to ICE custody. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us advocates believe the sheriff is in violation of state law.
3 years ago, state legislators passed a bill meant to curb local law enforcement's cooperation with immigration and customs enforcement. In response, Gore changed some of his department's practices to comply with the law. For example, there have been fewer transfers directly to ICE custody. But the sheriff also began posting the names and release dates of detainees online, making it easier for ICE to find and arrest them. The Sheriff's Department said it made that decision to provide an up-to-date indicator of an individual's release status to the public.
This is something that is not unusual. He does it all of the time in circumvention of California law.
Civil rights attorney Genevieve Jones-Wright says this breaks state law. She represents a Mexican man who was arrested by San Diego police while at work last fall. His charges were almost immediately dropped, but when he was released from county jail 2 days later, ICE agents were waiting for him. The sheriff had posted his name and release date on its website. The man, whose name is being protected in case of retaliation from the Sheriff's Department, now faces possible deportation and separation from his 2 children who are U.S. citizens.
When we have a sheriff like Sheriff Gore who implements such policies to evade California law, every single charge has immigration consequences for our undocumented community members.
Last year, the forum was held in the middle of the day. That made it inaccessible to many working immigrants who wanted to discuss interactions with immigration enforcement. Supervisors Nathan Fletcher and Greg Cox moved this year's forum to the evening.
I want our immigrant communities to know that the job of local law enforcement is to protect and serve all who live here, not to be an appendage or an aid or an extension of federal immigration authorities. That is state law. And we want to make sure that that state law is being fulfilled.
With a new Democratic majority coming to the Board of Supervisors in the new year, Fletcher believes the county will continue to shift its treatment towards immigrants, offering more accountability when it comes to law enforcement and its relationship to immigration officials. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the leaders of Facebook and Twitter face congressional questioning over alleged political bias on their platforms. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
One of the world's richest men is giving some of his fortune to causes fighting climate change. Amazon's Jeff Bezos has announced an $800 million gift. It will be spread among 16 groups that include scientists, activists, and NGOs. The donation from Bezos comes as Amazon faces criticism for its environmental impact, including from employees who have staged walkouts. In what's been a relentless hurricane season, Central America is taking another beating. Hurricane Iota slammed into Nicaragua last night. This is video of Colombia's Navy bringing aid to the country today. Iota is the second hurricane to hit Nicaragua in just a couple of weeks. Here's Patrick Oppman with more on this powerful storm.
Coming late in an already record-breaking hurricane season, Hurricane Iota has all the markings of a catastrophic storm as it takes aim at Nicaragua and Honduras. And the storm follows the path of Hurricane Eta, which slammed into Central America earlier this month as a Category 4 storm, killing dozens of people, causing widespread flooding and leveling homes.
I was destroyed, completely without anything. I was only left with the clothes on my back, without anything. Completely. In 15 minutes, my house was destroyed.
Before Iota's arrival, Nicaraguan Navy ships ferried people inland from unprotected coastal areas. An army truck transported people to shelters. Some tried to repair homes damaged 2 weeks ago by Hurricane Eta. More than 3.6 million people in Central America have been impacted by that storm, according to the Red Cross, and are vulnerable as Iota approaches. With 2 weeks until the end of the hurricane season, Iota will be the 30th named storm of a record-breaking year. Forecasters have now switched to the Greek alphabet after running through all 21 names selected for this year's hurricane season, something that hasn't happened since 2005. Iota will be the latest in the year that Category 5 hurricane has formed in the Atlantic Basin since forecasters began keeping records. When Category 5 Hurricane Mitch hit Honduras and Nicaragua in 1998, more than 11,000 people died in the region, many in widespread mudslides. Now people rush to seek safety before the storm hits, crowding into shelters despite the danger presented by the coronavirus. Some shelters in Nicaragua are at capacity.
We are receiving those who come, but we cannot receive more people because it's too full. We don't have the premises. There is no more space.
In an already hard-hit region, more devastating wind, rain, and suffering are on the way. Patrick Ottman, CNN.
As we check out our weather headlines, well, our onshore flow will be strengthening here, so that means continued cooling. Tomorrow will be cooler than today, and we'll see some gusty winds. Winds will be strong and gusty tonight and right through Wednesday, especially in the interior sections and in the mountains. And then we're looking at our cooling trend to continue through the week, but the most significant cooling will be into Wednesday. Then after that, just gradual cooling into Friday. And then over the weekend, temperatures will start to bump up a little bit, especially on Sunday. Looking at tonight, more in the way of clouds. They'll be near the coast. So we'll see a low of 47 in Oceanside, 56 San Diego. Ramona, 41 for a low, in El Cajon, 53. Mountain Laguna down to 36 overnight. Now for tomorrow, well, we have this trough from Northern California into the Northwest. Any type of moisture fades, but we will see some gusty winds in our area. And as we take a look at our temperatures, they'll be rising to about 67 Oceanside, San Diego 70. That's fairly close to average. And we'll see plenty of clouds in the morning hours. Here in Ramona, 73, El Cajon around 80, Borrego Springs 83, and Campo at 72. Looking ahead to Thursday, well, we should be dry and comfortable. Winds should be relaxing. And as we take a look at our temperatures next couple of days, well, we'll be running seasonably cool here, clouds and sun, a little cooler into Friday, but then over the weekend, looks pretty nice. Should be a little milder. And as we head inland, we'll have the gusty winds with us Wednesday, diminishing Thursday. And there you can see the weekend looks very nice. In the mountain areas, gusty winds. Winds will diminish, so we'll see some clouds around, but over the weekend it looks beautiful. And in the deserts, well, temperatures will trend down a little bit through the end of the week. Looks nice. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Biancuso.
Let's go back to the county's efforts to get businesses to comply with the new COVID-19 restrictions. The stern warnings come as COVID cases skyrocket. KPBS reporter John Carroll on the get on board or else approach.
Like most of the United States, COVID infections are blowing up in San Diego County. Over the weekend, the county moved to punish violators of health regulations that now have us in the purple, most restrictive tier. That means restaurants, movie theaters, museums, and places of worship can only operate outdoors. This is the list of organizations that got the cease and desist orders. It includes restaurant bars, gyms, yoga studios, and a church in Carlsbad. But cease and desist orders can only do so much.
The actual fine or penalty associated with that has to be written by the law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction for that particular location, and then it's up to the district attorney or the city attorney in the city of San Diego to prosecute that offense.
We reached out to both the DA and city attorney's offices to see if there have been any prosecutions. The city attorney's office said there haven't been any. We didn't hear back from the DA.
If we chased every COVID complaint, we would just stop doing all policing in any other form in the city of El Cajon.
El Cajon City Manager Graham Mitchell says it's important to use data when making decisions about the use of limited city resources. He says issuing fines isn't the best way to handle the situation.
We've found that a more educative approach has been far more effective than coming in, threatening to shut people down, or threatening to fine somebody $1,000.
That is the consequence facing violators, each of whom received this letter from County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten, and right there at the bottom, the threat of a $1,000 fine for each violation. Fletcher says after months of dealing with COVID, the notion that people still need to be educated about the problem defies common sense.
I don't think that our challenge in confronting COVID is a lack of awareness of what folks are supposed to be doing. I think our challenge is to actually do it.
That will definitely be a challenge. Consider what the lead pastor of Skyline Church said on Monday.
I don't want to fight our county. We don't want to fight. We really don't, but we will, because we know our rights and we know how important it is that we stay open.
The church has not been cited. While the disagreements continue, so does a virus that's tearing across the country with no end in sight. John Carroll, KPBS News.
COVID-19 restrictions have kept youth athletes from being able to get out and play. For many who are graduating high school, this means college and scholarship opportunities have all but vanished. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne talks to an Oceanside soccer team about what they're doing to get those opportunities back.
I'm not sure how this is going to end up, but they've really lost a lot of valuable time.
In blue, you guys blues, you guys are over here.
Frank Zimmerman, coach for the Oceanside Breakers, was unable to lead his boys' team of high school juniors to defend their 2019 State Cup championship due to COVID-19 restrictions. For these 16 to 17-year-old boys, this is a pivotal moment where college teams begin to scout players. Without the ability to compete, players like Javier Camargo can't get those opportunities.
We're really looking forward to National Cup. We're defending champs back in 2019. And, we could have been exposed to a lot of colleges now that we're juniors.
California's COVID-19 guidelines allow conditioning, practice, and training, but no competition outside a team's defined practice cohort.
Playing locally is not allowed. Even playing with one of our Breakers teams against another Oceanside Breakers team is not yet allowed. They have to stay in their cohort. However, it is allowed in other neighboring states.
Sporting events have been held in Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. Zimmerman plans on making the trip to Arizona with his team Thanksgiving weekend, even though California has issued a travel advisory telling people to quarantine if they go out of state and return. Christian McElroy, an Oceanside Breaker, is looking forward to playing in front of college coaches when his team travels to the Arizona tournament.
We just want to play, and we're not allowed to play in California, so whenever we get a chance, it'll be good.
With the restrictions on competitive play, sports clubs throughout San Diego are struggling to keep running. Bob Turner, executive director of Presidio Soccer League, says that impacts some players more than others.
The kids with money are going to be able to play. They can afford it, but the underprivileged kids that have been helped and scholarshiped aren't going to have those scholarships. They will not have them. And now, again, the direct effect is to those kids.
Coaches Turner and Zimmerman said the lack of competitions in sports also impacts the mental health of players who just want to play.
They miss competing with each other against other teams, and they haven't got to do that since March 13th, before March 13th.
Youth sports opens the door to college for many athletes. With no ease of restrictions in sight, players like Javier Camargo will need to work with their coaches to find the opportunities to get them exposed to college and pro recruiters.
I've been playing the sport since I was 4, and yeah, it's something I do want to play professionally, hopefully. And I look forward to getting scouted one day and just making my dreams come true.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
This story was produced with support from the Economic Hardship Reporting Project. The International Space Station is getting crowded. Here's what it sounded like as a crew of 4 arrived on Monday night on their SpaceX capsule.
And there they are, first across the hatch, Mike Hopkins. And here's Victor Glover.
This will be the first full-length mission for Elon Musk's company, which is part of the public-private partnership with NASA. There are now 7 astronauts at the space station. The newest group will be there until April. Jeff Nguyen has the story of one of the crew members and those who helped him along the way.
Hello, everyone. Victor here.
Southern California native Victor Glover gave us a tour of the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule during its rendezvous with the International Space Station.
We entered resilience through this side hatch.
Glover graduated from Ontario High School. He went on to Cal Poly before joining this historic mission that partnered a private company with NASA. Daniel Walsh is Glover's former engineering advisor.
I'm just so pleased that Victor could be on the crew that really brings the U.S. back to space in a meaningful way.
Glover was also a member of the Cal Poly wrestling team. His former coach watched the SpaceX launch with his wife.
It brought tears to my eyes. Both of us were, wiping our eyes and just so joyful for Victor to go through that. And not only for that, but for our country.
Glover is the first black astronaut to work on the International Space Station for a long-term mission.
It is important to have kids who look like me or look like I looked when I was younger, see someone that they can relate to that way.
He's also married with 4 daughters.
I can't overemphasize what a great man he is.
After Cal Poly, Glover joined the Navy, where he became a commander and test pilot, which led to the Astronaut Corps in 2013.
For passing 100 kilometers. Congratulations.
Today, we got to see his infectious smile as he received his gold pin that astronauts can only get once they've reached space.
This gives us an opening to our dreams.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.